Hey everybody, Drew Dinkmeyer here from DailyRoto doing a tutorial to walk you through the 2018 NFL Optimizer and all the improvements and adjustments we've made to the optimizer for this upcoming NFL season. We're really excited about the improvements and we wanted to show them to you through a tutorial video. You'll get to the landing page here of our optimizer, and this is what it'll look like. In the bottom right, it'll tell you to choose a slate. So once we go in the top left to choose a slate, we'll choose FanDuel. You'll see all the same settings on the customizable projections that we've had the last few years. These projections are customizable both at the team level or at the player level. And as you make adjustments, you can see players' projections move. So for example, Le'Veon Bell at 20.43 points. If we bump Pitt's plays up, and we expect them to run more plays in this game, you'll see Le'Veon Bell's projections start to move forward. You can save these settings that you've adjusted up here, the plays adjustments, or you can reset them to our DR baselines with this arrow to move back. You can also edit on the individual level if you think Le'Veon Bell is going to be more productive or more efficient than our original projections. You can move those around as well. All of these are the ability to customize these projections, allow you to put your influence on our projections and our baselines that you'll have every single week. But most of the adjustments and the improvements we've made have been on the optimizer side and the settings side as opposed to just the customizable projection. So let's go into settings up in the top right. You'll see the ability to control global exposures here. So what this is saying is within my player pool, I want no quarterback to go over, 100% is the baseline default, but you can change that to 20. So you'd have a spread of quarterbacks. You can do that at all the positions. You can also make it so that if you want all of your lineups that are run to be stacks, you can simply make it a QB plus a wide receiver, a QB plus a running back, a QB plus a tight end. These secondary stack levels are ORs, so a QB plus a wide receiver or a tight end, a wide receiver or a running back, or any of the above. You can also create game stacks by allowing your stack to have an opponent's wide receiver, running back, tight end, or any of those combinations available to you. You can stack your running back with your defense if you'd like to add correlation that way. You simply check that box and all your lineups will come with a running back and a defense stacked. You can control what players are in your flex. FanDuel's added a flex this season, so you have the ability to use more running backs, wide receivers, or tight ends. You can choose which players, what player positions you want to load up in those flex. Don't want running backs in flex this week? Simply uncheck them. You have the ability to control how many uniques per lineup are created. So every lineup that's created, if you want a wider spread of your player pool, you can add more uniques to it. You can say every lineup that's new, I want 3 different players than the lineup before that was created. You can control ownership of the total lineup. We will have ownership projections on site this year. And if you want to build contrarian lineups, you can say, I want no total ownership of any one lineup to be above 100%. Meaning, if David Johnson is projected for 30% ownership this week and he makes it into your optimal lineup, he is taking up 30 of the 100 allocated ownership percentage points that lineup has as a maximum. So you'll get lower owned players kind of paired together in ways to do that. You can create, number of lineups here. You can go 100 as the default. You can go up to 150. You can go down to as few as 5 or 10, however you want to do it. You can choose if you want your defense, if you want offensive players versus your defense as well, which I always keep as 0. There's some other view settings down here. The way it loads with our custom settings is the customizable projections, but you can load it to show the output as well, where it will show the individual players' projected statistics in this case. Those will be useful for some of our prop betting tools as well. You can see in this case, we have David Johnson on these projections projected for 88 rushing yards in this one. You can also go to just a basic setting that has the line, the team total, doesn't have any of the customizability, doesn't have any of the output, has the opponent DVP, and so on and so forth. You have the ability to save whatever edits you've made up in the top right on this disk. The disk appears here on the individual player settings, here on the team settings as well if you want to save stuff. I have some settings loaded that I'll load here that I've had saved already. I'll change a few things slightly on here. I'll lessen the uniques, but you can see I'm saying no more than 20% ownership on any quarterback or defense, 30% on any running back, so on and so forth. You can save up in the upper right. You can go back to defaults if you want. On the team settings, team limits page, we have the ability to remove teams from the player pool altogether. So if you don't want any Arizona players, you simply uncheck them there. If you want to make sure you have at least 2 Minnesota players, Arizona players, you can add minimums there. If you want to make sure you have no more than 2 Arizona players, you can have maximums, and you can certainly save there if you want as well. The biggest upgrade we think is the group section, and the ability to create groups helps better control the way the lineups are made for you. And when you create a lot of groups, you can create really, really cool customized lineup builds within this optimizer. So I've got a couple groups down here you'll see already created. We'll go to the first one, the max 1 top running back. This is saying that, you know, I want no more than one of Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, or Alvin Kamara in a lineup. So that's what the at most means. If it said at least, I could get every lineup had at least one of these guys. If I had exactly, every lineup would have exactly one. If I do between, every lineup would have between 0 and 1 or 1 and 2 or something like that. And the way to create a group is rather simple. You just hit create group, you type in a group name, and you start adding players to the groups. Now there's also key features that help create stacks, and the key feature you can find in the group settings with this little key icon. You can also find it on the individual projections page with the key icon as well. And this is a great way to create stacks available to you. Key rules are basically if-thens. So this key stack I've named Brees stacks, and my key player is Drew Brees. Anytime Drew Brees is in a lineup, then this rule goes into effect. So I'm saying all of my Drew Brees lineups, I want between 1 and 2 of Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Cam Meredith, Ted Ginn. This makes sure that Drew Brees will only appear stacked in my lineups. So I didn't have to set in the original settings that I needed stacks to still get stacks. I can create the ability to, through key players, to have some players stacked and some players not stacked. This helps with setting up lineups for like running quarterbacks and stuff, where you want to build a bunch of lineups and you don't want your running quarterback stacked, but you do want your throwing quarterback stacked. You can also create game stacks. Like I have a Tom Brady stack created in here where you can see it will have at least one of Chris Hogan, Rex Burkhead, or Rob Gronkowski, but I also created another group with Brady that has exactly one of Will Fuller or DeAndre Hopkins. So if I get Brady in a lineup and he's projecting well, not only will I have him stacked, but I'll have him coming back with someone from the Houston game, so I can create a quick game stack there. On the player side, a few other things that you can use. You can toggle which players you want in and out of your player pool by using the checkboxes. You can see on the quarterback side, I've already deselected Blake Bortles, Cam Newton, Marcus Mariota, Ryan Fitzpatrick here. You can also use the lock button if you want to like lock Phillip Rivers on the slate or something like that. But from here on out, let's run the optimizer and see how the FanDuel optimizer takes into account those groups and what kinds of lineups it gives us. So you'll see this year we've added this processing bar to let you know if the optimizer is running correctly. If it gets stuck and it's not moving beyond 0, that means your constraints might be too difficult for the optimizer to make lineups. If you're saying like at least 3 of Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Alvin Kamara, it might have a tough time making lineups. But you can see it moved pretty quickly there, and we have lineups coming in. You can see within these lineups it's handled the groups well. There's no Alvin Kamara and David Johnson or Le'Veon Bell together. You see them all separated. We see a lot of Phillip Rivers early on, but when we get to the Drew Brees stacks down here, you'll see that Drew Brees has at least one of Alvin Kamara or Michael Thomas with him in all of these different lineups. From here, you'll be able to see what player exposures you have by the players in the upper right. You can see that at the top of the exposure, the wide receivers are at the top at 35% exposure and ownership there. That's because we capped them. The wide receivers at a max of 35. You'll see the quarterbacks are at a max of 20 because we capped them there. Same with the defenses that are used in this scenario as well. You'll have a couple other options here once you have the lineups in play. You can always export to CSV. You can see the download lines as well, which will pop up the ability to show all of the lineups that have been created, and it'll put them in a nice, easy way to be able to upload onto FanDuel in this case. So it's got all the player IDs with the projection and the value and the total cost of the salary of the lineup. And you can see the players' names as well if you want to expand out there. This will simply upload onto FanDuel CSV, upload quickly. So if you want to be able to upload your lineups onto the site, it's really easy there. But that's going to be it for this week's tutorial of the 2018 NFL Optimizer. We're really excited about the improvements we've made to the optimizer, and we hope you join us this upcoming NFL season and have a lot of fun with the guys at DailyRoto.